What's going on, YouTube? So in an ever-changing automotive industry, we're always excited to spend time with one of the newest brands. Say hello to the all-new 2026 Polestar 4, which we've had the pleasure of living with this week. So after 7 days, is this a great car that nobody is talking about? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's start out under the hood with our quick spec dump. So this is an EV. Under the hood we have our frunk, and as far as the specs, underneath of the vehicle we have a 100 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. We have dual motor all-wheel drive for today's example with 544 horsepower. The EPA rated range is 280 miles.
Now the base price for this model is around $56,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, this is a real-world 7-day review, so we have things to talk about such as efficiency, as well as if we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it this week.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because there is a lot to talk about when it comes to the unique exterior as well as interior. So as far as the exterior design is concerned, this is certainly a very unique product on our American roads. Obviously this brand has been around just for a little while, so you're not going to see too many of these around whatsoever. And it has a very unique look from anything else that we see on the road. Definitely this week when we showed this to people, it really got a lot of attention. Now, in terms of some elements to point out, the grille up here in the front is going to be very simple. As you can see, it's really basically just finished in body color. And then actually down here on the lower part of the fascia, this is where you can have some models that have a matte black finish that goes all the way around the vehicle, kind of a cladding almost, or you can do the optional body color, which is what we have on today's example. Now, lighting is also going to play a prominent role in this vehicle, so we have some really unique looking split LED headlights here. These are projector LEDs with adaptive abilities as well, and this week we have been very satisfied with the overall performance of them. Also, you have the animations as you walk up to the vehicle, and that includes the logo, which is lighted. Now, I think things get quite a bit more interesting when we move to the back versus the front.
Yeah, you might have spotted the difference compared to a normal vehicle, and that's the fact that we actually have no rear glass at all. It's just a camera. We'll talk about our impressions after living with it for the past week, but it is definitely interesting to have no rear glass and no rear visibility at all. But as far as the rest of the design, it is kind of coupe-like in its overall shape. It looks pretty cool. Definitely have had a lot of people take a double take at this model. And let's take a look at some individual design touches. Our taillights are going to be very premium. So, of course, they're full length across the back. As you can see, we have an LED brake light that goes across the top here. We have an LED reverse light and an LED turn signal indicator. The rest of the back is going to be pretty simple in terms of its design. And down here at the bottom, when it comes to towing, you can tow with this model 2,000 pounds with a single motor or 3,500 pounds with this dual motor all-wheel drive.
Now moving on to the wheels, you have 20, 21, or 22-inch options. This is the middle one. This is a 21-inch contrast alloy, which I think looks quite nice overall. By the way, I should mention the ride height of this vehicle. It's 6.5 inches off the ground. So that's the reason why when you look at this, it kind of has a vibe that's kind of in between a sedan and a crossover. It's almost like a Toyota Crown in that respect. Now, as we move up to the mirrors, they've got this very unique look. Of course, Polestar is kind of in the same family as Volvo, so we've seen this really neat-looking frameless mirror in some of the Volvo products. As you can see, it's fully loaded with blind spot monitoring, auto-dimming, and power folding.
Now, like Drew said, this is a very unique vehicle, and when it comes to sizing, it's about 190.5 inches, which if you're looking at maybe a luxury alternative like a BMW, that's right in between a BMW X4 and a BMW X6 in length. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit shorter than your average SUV. You have the pop-out door handles, and let's talk about safety features. All of those are going to be included as standard equipment, as you might expect. That will include things like adaptive cruise control, and you even have lane change assist. But guys, there's a lot to talk about on the inside as well. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then, we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from our long-term vehicle videos to our side-by-side comparisons, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. Okay, now time to check out the cabin. First, we'll take a look at our key options. So you've got really 3 different options. They anticipate that you'll use phone as key primarily, but you can also get a little key fob, or you can get the key card here and keep that with you as backup. Now walking up to the vehicle, it should just go ahead and sense your approach. And as it does, it'll pop the door handles out and fold the mirrors outward. You can also use that button right there, or excuse me, that spot to tap the key card. Now, looking inside this interior, we're going to see a very modern and sleek design. It is going to have certain elements that remind you a bit of both Volvo and the parent company of this, Geely. Now, let's talk about some things with the seats to start off with. This begins with a leatherette seat. Actually, most versions will come with a leatherette seat. However, on our top spec we have today, this has the available Napa leather seat. So this is a top tier type of leather. It's very soft and supple. Volvo says it's 100% traceable, so they do this as sustainably as possible, giving you the real leather, and I like the perforation on board. The seats are power adjusting with 12 ways of adjustment, and of course you have memory settings, but that stuff is going to be synced to your key fob and inside of the screen. Let's go ahead and climb inside. And now that we're inside the interior, let's look around at the rest of the materials. So just like with these seats, a lot of emphasis was put on having sustainable and unique materials inside of the cabin. That begins over here with the door trim. We have a full leatherette covering all through here in the light color. And then through the center section, we've got a very unique trim. So this is kind of a mesh material, and then there's beautiful ambient lighting that actually runs all throughout it as well as through there. In general, the vehicle has really, really nice ambient lighting that looks super great at night, and they named the different themes after planets. Now up top, we see more of this kind of rubbery leatherette across there with a stitching detail, more of the mesh material through the center section. Through here, we have more leatherette, and everything does feel very well put together and super solid inside of this cabin. Now, there's no traditional push-button start, but you'll just put your foot on the brake and you shift into drive or reverse to boot it up. All right, so let's get into individual details now with this interior. One of the things that's pretty nice about this product is that it does still have a gauge cluster. So you've got a about 10-inch gauge cluster right there in the center. You can reconfigure this with some different designs by pressing this button here on the steering wheel. But overall, it's actually pretty easy to get used to, and you can put the Google Maps in there, which is pretty nice. Up top, we have a 14-inch head-up display as well, which has a lot of vivid information inside of it. And this little notch over here is your driver monitoring camera. Now, as far as the steering wheel is concerned, we've got a nice leatherette wrapping. It is flat-bottomed. And like I was mentioning earlier, you actually have physical buttons on here, which is nice. The wheel itself, though, is, of course, power, tilt, and telescoping, and heated. You have to make the adjustments to the steering wheel and the mirrors inside of the display. And now let's look at interior storage. We'll open up our center console here and take a look at the donuts. Inside, you'll find 6 donuts inside, which is fairly decent, but of course, this is not really the main part of the storage. This vehicle just kind of has this floating console, and you'll see underneath of the cup holders and the wireless phone charging pad, then you just have this absolutely massive center pass-through storage. You can stick all types of things. There's actually some little cubbies inside of it to help you sort out your belongings, and definitely gives you a lot of flexibility. The shifter is up here, electronic style, of course. Already showed you that. When we go into reverse, here's our 360-degree camera system. This is standard equipment on all versions of this, and we have active trajectory as well as that overhead view. And just press the end of the stalk there for park. Now, as we move into this center tunnel area, you can see there's really only one physical button to draw your attention to, and this is a very prominent volume button as well as your play and pause button. This, of course, is for your audio system, so you have some choices when it comes to this. So it starts out with 8 speakers. You have 12 speakers, or you can get 16 speakers if you get the fully loaded model with the optional Napa leather seats. That's what we have today. So it's 16 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. We'll give it a sample. So overall sound quality of this system is excellent. It really fills up the cabin nicely. With the extra speakers, some of those are actually in the headrest, so it has a super strong surround sound effect. And like I said, with a lot of different types of music, you hear really great details. So we were super impressed by this audio system. All right, so now let's kind of zero in on the rest. It's going to be inside of this 15.4-inch display. One of the things you might have noticed is that there's no real place to adjust the vents. They're super low profile and kind of hidden throughout the cabin. That's actually going to be done inside of your climate menu. So we have a available 3-zone climate control or standard dual zone climate control. You can do automatic or manual modes. And then as you can see, you can actually point the vents. Well, right now we don't have those vents on, but you can actually guide those vents in whatever direction you want to inside of this display. And then you can access the rear climate as well from the front. Now, also inside of this menu area, we have this button right here. This is where you can pop up your heated seats, which are standard equipment. They get really hot. Also, the heated steering wheel has 3 stages, and it gets super hot. It actually might burn your hand. It's so hot. You have massaging ability with the Napa leather seats, and then we also have ventilated seats with the Napa leather seats. Now, with the rest of this display, it is based on Android, but it's totally distinct from, say, some of the Volvo softwares that we've used in the past. This has definitely a different layout, which we liked better overall. It has things like Google built in to the system itself, so you can engage with Google Maps, Google Apps, Google Play Store, things like that. And then the layout is pretty simple. Here's where all the rest of your applications will be. One of those is wireless Apple CarPlay, by the way, but it does not have Android Auto abilities. And then your vehicle settings are going to be inside of here, where you can get to all the different settings. So it makes a pretty complicated setup fairly easy, I think. I got used to it, and we didn't have any real glitches with this system throughout the week, besides for one minor moment for a couple minutes I couldn't get the heated seat menu to pop up. Now, up above here, we have an auto-dimming mirror with the digital camera system, because, of course, if I turn that off, we don't see anything, because like Mason was mentioning earlier, there's no rear windshield whatsoever. They just have like an ambient light back there in the back. And, overall, it's actually fairly easy to get used to. I thought it was going to be harder to get used to, but you definitely can't back up the old school way, where you put your arm back here and do that. If anyone's still doing that, this is not the car for you.
Now let's talk about the rear seat area in the Polestar 4. Now, before we get to that, I do want to point out that we have the full glass roof. This is an option on this model. It actually has the ability to turn opaque or transparent. Some pretty cool functionality with that. And let's talk about overall space as well. So Polestar has not officially provided us with legroom figures. However, you're going to see with me sitting back here, there's a ton of room back in this second row. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we bring along the official Car Confections ruler. That's so we can get a realistic knee room figure. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", I'm 5'9", and 10 inches of knee space. That is absolutely fantastic. And then my feet can kind of slide up underneath of the seats if I kind of tilt them in. But overall, tons of space, and it's also quite comfortable back here in the rear. You'll notice that we have some really plush seats. Also, when you get the Napa leather, you get the wing style headrest here in the back to add some extra comfort. And let me go ahead and drop down this center armrest. You'll see we have a beautiful design to this, a little bit extra storage, and then off to the side you'll find these buttons. That's actually because we have a full power adjusting second row of seats. It won't slide forward and back, but it does have the nice reclining function, so I definitely like that. And then we have cup holders that pop out of the end. We're not done with features. We have vents here in the center section, our own little touch screen here that will adjust the climate. You also do have the ability to turn on your heated second row of seats. Down below, 2 USB-C ports. I like the seat back design itself. You have vents coming out of the B-pillar, and if you look over at the door trim, it's going to be very nicely done. You have the same materials, lots of cool ambient lighting going through here, and you also have a bit of storage down in the bottom. I also like the fact that they've done like a suede headliner as well to really class up the cabin. Walking up to the tailgate, of course, we have a power one. You can press the button right there, and that will go ahead and open it up. And let's talk about overall cargo capacity that you'll find on this model. So it's about 18 cubic feet behind the second row of seats, and as a maximum, Polestar says around 54 cubic feet of capacity. That's actually very good depending on what you're cross-shopping this with, if it's a sedan or an SUV. And speaking of vehicles you might be cross-shopping with, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. We've looked at numerous vehicle segments and ranked those segments in the most important categories to buyers. Things like cargo capacity, interior technology, luxury, value, all of that is detailed on our website. So if you want to make an informed buying decision as, compared to some of the competition, definitely check that out. Now, as far as features here in the Polestar 4, we have some lights here on the side, a little bit of storage on the sides. However, you cannot fold the second row of seats down from the cargo area, so I'll go up and do that now. And now that I've got those seats folded down, they do fold 60-40 split. Let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. So overall cargo length behind Drew's seating position, 77 inches of length. That's actually very good. From behind the second row, about 38 inches of length. Let's get our opening, 41 inches wide. The height, that's going to vary a lot, but it's sitting at around 21 inches, which is very similar to a sedan right at that point. And then here at the end of the cargo area, you're about a foot. So not a ton of height, so keep that in mind. That sleek design on the outside kind of cost you there. And then 30 inches is your load-in height. Underneath of the floor, as you can see, we actually dropped the floor down a little bit further. There's extra storage underneath. You're not going to have a spare tire, though, so keep that in mind. And, of course, you do have a frunk in the front of the vehicle that gives you, I think it's about an extra half cubic feet of space. You have the cool Polestar logo right there at the top as well. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Polestar 4. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting things like our sound level reading. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration because this thing is very quick.
And there's 60 miles per hour with the Polestar 4. So, let's talk about the power figures on this. So this is the dual motor all-wheel drive version, as we talked about at the beginning, and that means we have 544 horsepower and over 500 pound-feet of torque as well. So this makes some serious power, and when you put your foot down, you will certainly be able to tell that.
Absolutely. This thing is super quick. So as far as the 0 to 60 on this, it is a under 4 second to 60 car. It's 3.7 seconds. Like Drew said, it has 506 pound-feet of torque, and that, of course, is courtesy of the dual motor all-wheel drive system that our model has. You can also get a single motor variant that is a rear drive version that has 272 horsepower, 253 pound-feet of torque. So honestly, just adding the extra motor basically just doubles your horsepower, essentially, is what the math is on that. So you have about half as much power on that single motor model, so keep that in mind. It does definitely have a more attractive price point, so that's also something to keep in mind. But the 0 to 60 on that is about 6.9 seconds as compared to the 3.7 on this.
Yeah, definitely more than enough torque to push you back in the seat quite aggressively. Now, with this model, we actually have it up on the display right now. You've got a lot of different drive settings. One of the main things that you can pick is between range and performance with your acceleration. So we have it right now in the performance setting, just giving you that maximum acceleration. But if you go in the range, it's going to help prioritize that and more or less kind of coach you into driving more
Yeah.
efficiently.
Still going to be very fast in either mode, that's for sure, but I do like that they give you the customizability just depending on what is most important to you. Now, I do want to, of course, point out that the battery size itself is going to be the same regardless of if you choose the single motor rear drive version or the dual motor all-wheel drive. It's a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. You won't forget it either because it's actually pasted on the side of the car. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing about this, is that it has the 100 kilowatt hour as well as, I believe, the kilowatts of power that this vehicle is delivering. But we just turned on a highway portion so we can do things such as talk about ride quality. Now, you may have already seen some of that here on the screen, but we do have adaptive dampers standard on every single Polestar 4, so that's definitely a nice feature to be standard. That allows you to pick between different settings, firm, nimble, or standard. What I drove around mostly in it was the standard mode, and actually I was very happy with the overall ride quality of this model. Despite having pretty large 21-inch alloy wheels on the outside, it does a very good job of soaking up those bumps in a way that a Volvo typically does, I will say. So definitely pretty impressed with the ride. Now, that's not to say it's the smoothest riding vehicle out there, but it definitely does have very solid ride for this type of vehicle with large wheels.
Yeah, and those three settings I think actually do make quite a bit of difference. Unlike Mason, I drove most of my time around in Nimble, which is kind of the in-between option. The firm one kind of jostles you a bit, but it does help the overall handling, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on.
And let's go ahead and get our sound level reading going 55 miles per hour. The rear climate is off, and we are in fan speed 1. All right, so we were sitting at 60 decibels even is our sound level reading here in the Polestar 4. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to the competition. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. And compared to its electric competition, that does mean that this is going to be on the louder end. Honestly, I'm a little surprised by that sound level reading. It seems kind of quieter to my ear, just like kind of listening to it, but I guess that's the reason why we have the sound level reader, so we can pick up on that exact number for you guys. But overall, it's going to be a decently quiet cabin. There's a little bit of road noise that I'm hearing, but of course there's no engine noise because it's electric after all. And of course, let's discuss things like charging and range. So when it comes to charging, we just have the traditional CCS charger. I do believe they will be updating this to have NACS charging at some point in the future, but this particular model is just CCS. And it can charge 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes at speeds of up to 200 kilowatts. So it's not the fastest charging EV out there, but it's going to be decent on the speed side. And let's talk about range as well, because we have the same 100 kilowatt hour battery for both the all-wheel drive as well as the rear drive version. That does mean the rear drive version will outperform this one at 310 miles on a charge. This all-wheel drive is sitting at 280 miles on a charge, so not fantastic range. I was kind of hoping for better range, especially at 280 when it's very cold outside. This past week that we've had this Polestar 4 has been extremely cold, like 5 degrees outside, so that has definitely impacted the range to make it not super competitive, that's for sure. Speaking of range, let's talk about efficiency and what we've been experiencing this week. Well, our overall consumption is 52.8 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. If you do the math on that, that's about 1.89 miles per kilowatt hour. That's not a fantastic number, but once again, I do want to emphasize that it's not exactly a fair test considering it was such a cold week that we had this Polestar product. So that definitely impacts your range a lot and your overall efficiency.
Yeah, for sure. On a 100% charge, it was showing about 220 miles of range. Now on this back road, we can kind of toss around some corners. We're in the firm suspension now. And with everything firmed up to its maximum setting, this vehicle does behave pretty nicely. The steering it still has kind of a lightness to it, which honestly, Volvo also has this kind of thing going on where the firm setting still is very light. But other than that, dynamically speaking, not a lot of body roll, and it just does change direction very quickly overall.
Yeah. Now let's get into our slam dunk and airball, our favorite and least favorite element about the Polestar 4. Drew, kick us off with the slam dunk for this model.
The slam dunk is going to be that this is a complex vehicle, but everything was actually relatively easy to get used to and functioned properly. We say that because, newer brands have certainly struggled with this in the past with glitches and different types of things we've ran into, and this vehicle really didn't suffer from that. Everything seemed to work properly, and definitely I think that we enjoyed having this vehicle this week and just getting that experience of a new brand and kind of just a new feel.
Yeah. Now on the airball side, what we're going to say is that we wish that you could just get this Polestar somewhere, at a Volvo dealership or more commonly. I don't know if it really makes a lot of sense that they don't sell these in Volvo dealerships. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing about this product. I think the nearest area to us that we could buy one is Nashville. So that's a 4-hour drive. So that definitely is going to hinder the availability of you being able to buy one. And I think Drew already kind of hit it, but do we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it this week? I think we all would say better. This was a very new experience for us, definitely a new brand, a new product, and it's a very interesting product. And overall, everything seemed to work well. Everything was put together well. And aside from the obvious things like range not being as good as we were expecting, we really did like living with it. And of course, we need to talk about pricing. That's a very important part of any type of review. So we start at $56,400 for the single motor model. As you can see, the full lineup of prices is on the screen right now. But one thing I do want to point out is that actually while we were building this model online, we noticed that there is just a $10,000 incentive on their website. So I wouldn't expect to pay that full price right now. At the time of us filming this video, it is actually fully $10,000 off, so the base price is more like $46,000. Now, if you want one like what we have today, we have the pretty much fully loaded example. So we have the dual motor plus 62.9. We have a couple options. As you can see, Napa leather's about $3,700. The plus package $5,500. We're sitting at around $79,100. So if you took $10,000 off of that, we'd be sitting right at that $70,000 price point for this model. The final assembly point is in South Korea. And if you're looking to buy a Polestar or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. And guys, that wraps up our week-long review of the all-new 2026 Polestar 4. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I promise you won't want to miss out. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.